I am joined by the one of the UK's, I want to say, pioneers of Christian rap music, Christian grime music. It is of course Guvna B. Welcome.
How you doing? You just made me sound old in my intro, but I like you.
To be fair, you're not even old. You are actually like 3 years older than me, and I describe myself as a spring chicken. So you can
Big
say that
ups.
if you want, man. So we are here to talk about your book. It's literally all I've been listening to for the past day. So your voice is very much in my head.
That was very annoying as well. Well, not annoying, but the audiobook was actually long to do because they was making me proper like pronounce my words and stuff. But big up the audiobook crew because that's how I like to consume books as well a lot of the time because
Yeah,
I'm always on the move and stuff. So yeah, big ups.
yeah. It's a great way to conceive it, man. And I think yeah, you did articulate yourself very well. And it was just a great listen. It's a great listen just to listen to it and to hear you actually say and to hear you talk about your experience. It was great. What I first wanted to ask was how did it feel finishing that and getting it all out? Did it feel like a cathartic process and like you'd kind of not closed these chapters that they're going to get into, but being able to put like an end to it almost?
Yeah, I guess for me, I view it as this is the beginning in a way because I had all these pent up thoughts in my head, and I'm not a strong processor, not a strong communicator, and music has been a great outlet for me. But after everything that happened in the last few years, it felt like I needed more than a 3 minute track or more than an album to get my thoughts out. So first and foremost, you're absolutely right. It was very cathartic, very therapeutic, um, but also multifunctional in a sense that it can, help people hopefully. But when I got to the end, it's crazy, man. Like I don't know if you went uni, but I went uni and I wasn't great at uni, but that feeling when you hand in your coursework and you're like, it's done. That's kind of how it felt. But I knew that for me, it was the start of conversations that I'd have with people that have read the book and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad it got finished.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book, man, and it will definitely help people. 100, because the topics that you talk about are just so real and they're relevant, and the way that you put them across, it just cuts through a lot of the jargon that we have in our own mind, or the things that we might think and we just pile up. But the way that you speak it through and you're just very open with it, it's good. It's a good way of just
Oh, that's good to hear, man.
yeah,
Because like when I was in school, I wasn't a strong reader. Like I didn't have a lot of books at home when I was growing up and stuff. So when I got to secondary school and it was like, all right, everyone go into the library and pick up a book, I always felt like the books never truly related to where I was at in life. Obviously, I could learn stuff from them, but there wasn't many books that spoke to me in like my language. You know what I'm saying? And spoke to like the council of the state and my culture and that kind of stuff. And that's why I loved like Refugee Boy by Benjamin Zephaniah because I felt like, oh, I can relate a little bit. And so when I was writing this book, I wrote it for, the young guy in school that has to go pick a book out in the library. And he's like, oh, snap. I've got similar experiences to this guy, and he's talking about stuff that I actually have to go through in life. So, yeah, I'm glad that it came across that man.
yeah, it did. And the stuff that you talk about. So the book is called Unspoken, released this year,
Yeah, yeah. In February.
released in February, and it covers. I mean, you say it's challenging the man within the man. Uh, it covers toxic masculinity. It covers death, grief, all of these really heavy topics. And I'm gonna try work through them. There's a lot that I wanted to ask, and I wrote down a whole lot of questions, but I thought can't ask all of that because we've been literally here all day. But I wanted to first start talking about toxic masculinity because it's familiar in that I'm not a man, but I've watched it in my life from
Mm.
men that have been in my life, from people in my family. I've watched it, and it's it's good to hear a man be so self-aware and acknowledge it and then say this is how I've challenged it within myself because I know that that's a difficult thing to do. um and there's a part where you said that you manned up because of death made you man up, and I love that line because it was like you've redefined what it means to be a man now for you.
Mm.
What is now that definition for you? Would you say that it is to be a man? If someone said what is a man, what is that for you?
Yeah. It's such a hard question, isn't it? Because from a young age, I was conditioned that a man is someone that is always strong, never cries, stiff upper lip, that kind of stuff. I think being a first generation Brit had something to do with that. My parents came over to England from Ghana, and all they knew was work, work, work. You know, we've got to further the legacy of the family. So my dad didn't really have time to be vulnerable with me because he was too busy trying to make, the rent that month. And so we never really spoke about our feelings or emotions. So in my mind, a man back then was like, you just work, you provide for the family, no time for emotions, you do what needs to be done. And then I'm working class as well. So council estate culture taught me that, guys, you can't be vulnerable, because if you're vulnerable, you become a victim. And if you're a victim on the estate, then no one really rates you. So I always internalized everything that I went through. You know, my friend got murdered at like 15 years old. It cut me deep, but I was like, I got to get on with it, because I'm a man. And then when my dad died in 2017, I went into that mode again. I was like, right, I got to do the admin around the funeral. I got to be there for mumsy. I got to be strong. But about 3 months after, I was on tour with Matt Redman, and then the last tour day, I went to the beach just to chill. And I woke up that day feeling super heavy. And then when I got to the beach, I just broke down in tears, and it was just like I had reached mental and emotional capacity. But after I'd finished crying, I felt this freedom that I hadn't felt for a long time. And then that's when I thought to myself, maybe a man isn't just someone that never cries or someone that's always strong. Like, those things are always good, but those things are good in of themselves. But when our mind and our body is telling us to be vulnerable, embrace weakness, tell the people around us that we're struggling, and we don't listen to that voice because we're trying to be strong and this macho man, then that can be toxic, that can be harmful. So I guess in the last few years, a man for me is someone that feels all the things, that embraces all the things. If they wake up and they're happy, they embrace that. If they wake up and they feel strong, they embrace that. But also, if they wake up and they're vulnerable, they're honest about it and they embrace that. They don't internalize it, because I think men think it's like a brave thing to go to the gym and that, because it makes them manly and that. But for me, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but it's actually brave to say to your brethren, yo, I'm struggling, or yo, man, I'm feeling depressed, or yo, I'm really going through it. That's a brave thing to do. And I think, a man is someone that can embrace both strength and vulnerability. That's kind of what I think now.
Yeah, I love that explanation because I think you said somewhere else in the book as well that life is about living fully in joy and fully in sadness and just fully in everything. And that is exactly what you just said. It makes sense, man.
Yeah. I think there was a Bible verse that I used to hear all the time in church, and it was John 10:10, and it was like, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come so you can have life and life to the full. And I always used to interpret life to the full as that every day is gonna be sick, like amazing. But now I feel that life to the full is, the fullness of joy. Sometimes it's the fullness of sadness. Sometimes it's the fullness of grief. Sometimes it's the fullness of happiness. But we can embrace all those things because in that, like, God's always with us, and we don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's even deeper in the sense that when you're growing up and you're trying to be cool, and so you don't allow yourself to show certain emotions because you're trying to be cool. When
Mm.
you're happy, you want to like hold it in because you're trying to be cool. Even that, it's
Yeah,
like it's not living life to the full because you're trying to live up to
yeah.
the image that someone's
That's
given.
so true.
It is,
That's
it is.
actually mad true. Like when you're gassed about something, and
Yeah,
then your
you
friend's
try
like, "Why are you gassed for, bro?"
yeah.
Yeah.
You try to hold it in because you don't want people to be like, why they're so gassed. But living life to the full is just living every emotion, man. Just full out there what you want to live.
Mm.
What I wanted to ask is in this process of redefining in your brain what a man was, did you ever look at Jesus or study Jesus and look at the parallels between what you now think a man is and who Jesus was?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's the perfect example, man. You know, he had to lick down certain things at times, you know what I'm saying, and like go hard and so show his strength. But there was times where he was really led by compassion and empathy, times where he cried, because he was hurt and he felt pain for other people. And I guess when I look at Jesus, I see vulnerability there. I see when he had to carry the cross, his, outward expression of feeling weak. and him calling out to God, saying, God, why have you forsaken me? And that kind of stuff. I see the vulnerability and I see the honesty, but also I see him like having to bad people up sometimes and be, yo, this is what I'm on and this is the truth of the situation. And so, yeah, I did, I've been studying Jesus ever since I've become a Christian. And I guess all these man-made terms like toxic masculinity and these things that we go to try and make society better. It's only because as human beings we've taken things in a different. Oh, so that's my Apple Watch. As human beings, we've taken things in a different direction. But all these ideas and things that really help us, like Jesus has already modeled it. He's already, shown us the way, and we just have to try and get back to what he modeled.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. 100%. I think looking at what Jesus did, because Jesus was a manly man in the sense that he was a carpenter. He used his hands.
Yeah,
He did that, but then he was also compassionate. He cried. He,
yeah,
to people. He was in touch with his emotions. So yeah, I think you're right with that.
100%. And yeah, I hope that people get from the book that he is, the ultimate man and the model. Because I feel like with society, sometimes we want the kingdom without the king. We want the things of God without God. So we just take all these little ideals and stuff and pretend that we made them up. But yeah, it comes from Jesus, man.
It comes from Jesus, man. You did mention a lot about the youth and how you love working with young people and you love mentoring them. And one thing that kind of I wanted to find out from you was that you spoke a lot about when young people die and then their friends don't get a chance to grieve, and young people process death slower than adults, so it will hit them
Mm,
6 months down the line and they may act out and everyone's like, what's wrong with them? It's because of what
yeah.
6 months ago. How, as adults, and you, for your child and children that you may have in the future, how do we facilitate a space for children to process these things? Because a lot of children, they bottle up. I've got nieces and nephews, I've got 15 of them. They don't always come to me when they're feeling sad. Sometimes they do, and they'll be like, this has really annoyed me today. But how do we make sure
Mm-mm.
that kids do come to us and they don't just hold this all in themselves as they're going through their lives and their teenage years? What do we do as adults now that we've grown and we know what they may need, but
Yeah.
they don't know what they need?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I always say, with young people, every action is a reaction. And sometimes, we're quick to write them off as, oh, he's just got an anger problem, or she's just a criminal, or that's just the way they are. But it's a response to trauma. And, young people don't always know how to process that. As soon as they lose someone close to them, it becomes a mental health problem for them and all the people around. And I think a great way for adults to try and create an environment where they can grieve properly is trying to create space for young people to feel like they can be honest. And when I say create space, I never grew up in a household that sat around the table every night at 7:30 or whatever and had dinner together. But I want to do that for my son, because sometimes he might chill and be like, "There's nothing I got to tell you." But on a Thursday or whatever, he might be like, actually, I feel like speaking today. And yo, dad, this is what's going on. I'm feeling this. But if that space around the table, for example, isn't there, there's no way for him to do that. And in his life, I just want to be a dad that creates space. And you know what young people are like, innit? Sometimes they're pushing, sometimes it's hard to talk. But as long as they know that if they do want to talk, there's a space for them to do that. I think that's super important. And I get the challenges that come with, adulthood. You're working, you're doing this, you're doing that. Sometimes it's hard to create that space, but I think it's really got to be a priority, because one thing I say in the book is we've got to help young people look after the puddles before they turn into floods. And for me, when my boy got killed on the estate, I internalized it and I thought that was me getting over it. But 10 years later, I'm in counseling and I'm crying about it, and it's so much more of a bigger thing because I've left it lying there for like 10 years. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's affected how I view the world and when I've lost people after that. So yeah, I'd say that number one thing is to just create space and for you to let them know that you care. Because I always think like young people don't care what you know, like until they know that you care. Like I think adults are so quick to come with the answers to life's big questions, and you got to do it like this. But they don't feel like you care about them. They don't care about none of that. So yeah, creating space and showing them that you care.
100%. And do you think it would have helped if our parents were more open and honest with their emotions, that it would make us feel like we can be as well?
Yeah, definitely. But one thing I've learned is that, I have grace for our parents, or if you had a parent that struggled to be open and vulnerable, like mine. Like my dad never told me that he had a bad day. He never told me that work wasn't great. Every day was just fine. You get me? But I don't think that it's that, our parents didn't want to be vulnerable or didn't want to communicate. I think it's just that they didn't know how to. And, you know, it's important for us to try and equip ourselves with the tools to do that, because we don't just, it's not natural for everyone. You have to learn how to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? And also, for my parents, they were fighting way different battles than I have to fight. They left Ghana in their early 20s. They came here with nothing. They had to figure out where they're going to live, how to pay rent, how to get a job, and that kind of stuff. I'm not having to deal with all of that stuff. So I have the privilege of having a bit more time to look after my mental health. Um, but it would have helped, because we pick up stuff. Like children are like sponges. Do you know what I'm saying? My son's starting to pick up stuff that I do already. So if our parents are well equipped in that area, then I think it gives us more of a chance to also thrive in that area. But I always think with every generation, there's a chance to do things a little bit better. And there's two ways you can go in it, because some people are like, oh, my dad never done this, so I'm going to be the complete opposite. But sometimes you just subconsciously end up, living out what you've seen growing up because it's normal to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel for our parents, but I think we have an opportunity to push things forward.
Change it, man. Um, I wanted to ask about the culture aspect of it. So you mentioned that Nick is white and also you're white.
Mm,
I don't know if you're conscious of
mm,
the fact that you did this, but you, when describing them, you described them both as being
mm,
open with their feelings and communication, and you said they're both
mm.
differently. Do you think that is a race thing? Do you think it's a culture thing? Do you think that maybe in certain parts of the world, like my dad's Jamaican, he doesn't
Yeah,
isn't open and honest with, not that he's not open and honest, but he's not the man to come and like,
yeah.
be open like that. Whereas
Mm,
on my mom's side, when I've seen friends or yeah, friends that I've had and their parents are white, they have a different relationship with their parents, is what I've just
mm.
over my life. Do you think that has played a part in it as well?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I'd say is, I know black people that are incredible communicators, and I know white people that are really bad communicators. But I'd say across the board, the element where I think race plays a part is black people, and especially African Caribbeans, have experienced a level of trauma that is just not normal for human beings to experience. And when you experience that level of trauma and you're constantly living in survival mode, you don't realize it, but it has such a deep effect on you that, yeah, maybe you go into your shell a bit. Maybe you think, I can't see how things are ever going to change. What's the point of me talking about this? Maybe you think, yeah, I'm just on this earth to work, and that's all I've got to offer. I don't even know where to start to talk about my emotions and my feelings. And even if I did talk about them, I can't see my situation ever improving. And if you're white and you've never had to, deal with that kind of trauma, there's a privilege there of you can wake up and just life's not as traumatic for you. So maybe it's easier for you to communicate. But if all you have to communicate is trauma, sometimes you don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? So even though I know black people that are great communicators and white people that are like bad communicators, I think across the board, there's a pattern that I notice, especially with, if your parents are born in 50s, the 60s, the 70s, coming from Africa and the Caribbean, there's definitely a pattern where we just don't communicate. And I think a lot of that is actually our shielding their kids from the reality of how tough life is. Because I'll be real, it wasn't until I got to like 18, 19, 20 that I realized that my parents really struggled to, provide, because they didn't let me know that. In my mind, I had an amazing upbringing. Do you know what I'm saying? There was a roof over my head, there was food on the table, but they had to really fight to do that. And yeah, I would say race definitely plays a part, man.
Yeah, I was thinking of it as well from slavery times, the trauma that black people went through for that, it
Mm.
can't be dismissed. It must have had effects on the way that they spoke to their children and they spoke to their children. And then the freed slaves must have just had that thing. And then it's just filtered down where you just don't speak about certain things
Yeah.
because it's just there.
100%. Like if you're a parent, if you live through slavery, why would you want to, plague your children with the gory details of what happened? You want to protect them from that. And then also, if you think, oh, do you know what? I'm struggling. I want to communicate. Why would you want to communicate when you can't see your life getting better? When every day you wake up and it's the same thing, it's gonna put you off. So yeah, I definitely think that plays a part.
Um, on the race issue as well. So I wanted to ask about your son. So you have a mixed race son. I am
Mm.
mixed race, and having mixed race brothers, having mixed race family members, there is a stereotype that mixed race or light skinned people are soft and can't take any kind of anything, and that is something that
Yeah.
can either, as a man, I mean, there's a whole different issue for women, but as a man, because you have a son, a lot of men might go further into the toxic masculinity thing to try shed that thing of look how soft I am. They might try to be too hard.
Mm.
I've seen it happen with people in my family. They've gone way into the world of being gangster.
Yeah.
They're trying to not be the soft light skin guy. How
Yeah.
are you gonna deal with that if your son does come into contact with that? Because it's gonna be a different experience because you can tell him that you love him, but then if he goes into the world and be this loving guy and he might battle with
Mm.
his brain, how are you how are you going to instill that in him that he doesn't have to go into that side of toxic masculinity and that it's okay to be who he is?
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, yeah, Ezra's mixed race, and I think my eyes have definitely been opened to the fact that the mixed race experience is different from the black experience. It's different from the white experience. And you're so right. I remember in school, man. I don't even know where it started or where it came from. But if you're mixed race or light skin, yeah, it's almost like he's crying because he's light skin or he's soft or he's showing his light skin side. And I think for Ezra, the key that I'm gonna try and instill into him is that he is perfectly created by God, and he is valued, and he has something to bring to the world. And society will always try and put these labels on you and describe you a certain way because of what you look like. But ultimately, you need to be confident in the fact that God has made you exactly how He wants you, and you still have something to give. And I've got in mind that when he's mixed race, so if he's around black family members, I don't want him to feel like, oh, I'm not black enough. You know what I'm saying? And if he's around his white family members, I don't want him to feel like, oh, I'm not white enough, and where do I really belong? And I can't protect him from the way that the world views him, but I can help him view himself in the right way. And I'm just gonna say to him, look, if you wake up one day and you feel like you're weak and you're vulnerable and you want to cry, do it, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Embrace it. But it's not because you're light skinned, it's because you are feeling vulnerable that day. And so yeah, I'm just gonna try and help him realize that, God's made him the way he is for a reason, and his skin color doesn't determine who he is. The world might look at him a certain way because of it, but he is valued and he's perfect the way he is.
I love that. I think that's the best thing to do. Because as a mixed race person, you do feel like you can't really be that weak because people are gonna be like, "Oh, but you just light skin and you cry for no reason." Light skin tears is something
Yeah.
I've had a lot in my life as well. So yeah,
If
man.
it don't work, I'll tell him to speak to Auntie Cass and she'll give him some advice.
That's some words of advice. um, I wanted to move over to the grief side of it now. So going from your son to your dad, and one thing that I found, it was sad, but it was beautiful at the same time, was that you said that you told him that you loved him just before he died, and that was
Mm.
it was so sad because I thought you didn't get to explore that world with him because he was taken away so soon. But you said it, and it's almost like a something was broken in that moment, in that you'd never said it before and it was done, but you didn't
Yeah.
to explore that with him.
Mm.
how how do you deal with that? I mean, it's like he's imparted this thing into you and then he hasn't been around to see it
Yeah.
actually happen.
Yeah. When I talk about it, I think sometimes people get a bit confused because I actually never doubted that my dad loved me because he showed it in his actions. And even though he didn't talk like a lot, I see him go to work for the family every day. drop me airport whenever I got a show, all that kind of stuff. So I never doubted it, but he just wasn't the kind of person that said, I love you. I can't actually remember him ever verbally saying it. He might have sent me a couple of texts saying, yo, I love you, but it was always me first, like, love you, dad. You like, love you too. And yeah, it was strange the day before he died because I don't know why he said it. And that was the first time I realized, oh, maybe something ain't right here. And he said, love you as I was leaving. And I was like, love you too. And I was like, why did he say that? Because he never says that. But I'm thankful that he did, just to eliminate any doubt that I had. But I kind of put it down to he just didn't have the tools to delve into. And I genuinely don't think, even if he like lived for longer, I think he only said it because he knew that something went right. But he just wasn't the kind of dad that said it. But now I say it to Ezra all the time, just because he must get annoyed with me. To be, I'm always like, love you, love you, love you. But just so that he hasn't got a doubt, and I want to make the next generation more comfortable with showing that, because I know a lot of guys, and not just guys, man, girls that just wasn't sure. Do my parents love me? Like, do they not? And so I think it's important to verbally say it, and I cherish the fact that he did. And yeah, you're right. It's a shame that we didn't get to delve into that side of our relationship. But hopefully I can do that with Ezra.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, from when you're saying I love you every day, you've already
Yeah.
happening, man. You did mention as well about the time of grief. So you said that it was 5 months, and you were questioning yourself, thinking, "Why am I not over it?" But for me, 5 months is no amount of time at all. Did you ever
Hmm.
feel a guilt in feeling like you wasn't over it for other people? Because sometimes when we go through things and we're talking about it and we are still sad about it, other people lose their patience because they want you to just get over it because they don't know how to deal with it
Mm,
anymore. Did you ever feel that guilt? And if you did, how did you manage it?
yeah, I felt like I was someone that people didn't know how to act around, because they knew, oh, obviously he's just lost his dad, he's gonna be upset. So because they kept saying, oh, are you okay? Like, are you sure you're good to come out? I felt like I just had to say yes, and I had to suck it up because I didn't want to make other people feel awkward. But I realized that those people love me, and all that pressure that I felt was pressure that I was putting on myself, and no one was expecting me to, you know, rush through my grief process. I was the one rushing myself through the grief process. And I'm someone that has always been quite emotionally stable. And so I think because I had that to live up to, that was another reason why I tried to force myself. But I told a few of my close friends that I was still struggling, like Nick and a guy called Joe as well. That's one of my good friends. And they took it well, man. And I always thought, no one would want to hang out with me because, when someone dies or someone's grieving, you don't know what to say in it. And so you're like, maybe I won't hang out with that person because it's too awkward. But actually, we became closer, and they were like, no, like I'm here for you through thick and thin. And it kind of showed me that, yeah, maybe I don't need to rush this. And also, I realized later on down the line that grief is not always something that you just get over. I'm still grieving for my dad. It's been 3 years. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think it's more like riding the waves. Majority of the days I'll be all right, but the off day I might get upset again 3 years down the line. And I've spoken to people that have lost people 20 years ago and they still get upset. So yeah, I've just learned to embrace that he was such a big part of my life that I'll probably be grieving for him forever. But you just learn how to live in a new normal a bit better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do want to get onto that in a bit of how you just accept it on the day to day. But I wanted to ask before that there was a line that you said that really articulated a feeling that I felt a lot of times, but I've never heard it spoken. It's when you said that you and God had a lot of tension. And when you said it, it just made sense because often you do have tension with God, but you don't describe it
Mm.
like that because tension you see as someone like your sibling or your partner. We have a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Have tension with God, it's a real thing. Sometimes there is a lot of tension with you and God, and it is what it is. And you said that lamenting was a way to kind of relieve that. Did you did that help in that process to kind of get that light bulb turned on to say, okay, lamenting about this and crying out to God, that's actually
Mm.
part of it? Because often we do that. We have things happen and we cry out to God and then we feel bad because we did that. But it's like you took that and you said, no, this is a part of it. This is what. you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it helped my faith massively. It was such a hard one because, in a way, my faith was exactly what I needed because it's the only thing, my only chance of seeing my dad again. So I was so grateful for it. But then at the same time, I'm like, God, why'd you take him away? How come I didn't have enough time? How did it just come out of the blue like that? And the tension actually started in my prayer life because what do I pray if I know that he's probably going to pass away because it doesn't look good? Do I pray for God to heal him? But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you can't heal cancer that's spread in all parts of his body. Or do I pray, God, take him peacefully? But I don't want to pray for you to take my dad because I don't want to lose him yet. So it was so much tension. And then after he passed, the tension was I meant to say all these nice things to God that I've been taught growing up in Pentecostal church, and everything has to always be all right. But that's not how I feel. I got questions, I got doubts, but I grew up in a church that you can't doubt God. Are you mad? Like he created the whole world. That you got to have reverence for him, and you can't ask him no questions and that kind of stuff. So that's the doctrine that I'm coming from. And so it just felt like my faith wasn't authentic because I couldn't say what I truly wanted to say to God. I didn't want to disrespect him, but I just wanted to say, God, I don't understand what's happening. God, I don't feel like praying. I don't feel like doing all this stuff because I don't understand. And it was actually Psalm 13, I think it was, that changed my outlook because it's David. And I think the first few verses are like, Lord, why have you forsaken me? Why have you left me? Why are my enemies triumphing over me? And I'm like, right, if David can like ask God these big boy questions, then I can do it too. So I started to pray them kind of prayers. And I'll tell you what, even though it felt mad awkward, it felt like I had a realer relationship with God. And I felt like, regardless of what I was conditioned to believe in church, if God's as big as we all say he is, then he should be able to deal with little old me's questions and doubts. And I'd rather speak to him about my doubts and questions than someone else that would tell me, oh, yeah, allow the God thing, bruv, man. I told you, you know what I'm saying? So it was tough, but I think it resulted in a more authentic and real relationship with God. And yeah, it made me feel good in the end because I felt like, yeah, I want to serve a God that I can ask the big questions to, you know?
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That is actually really inspiring because, yeah, sometimes we do go through that and you think, what is the end result? Is it that I'm not going to believe no more?
Mm,
The fact that you've come out and you've said, actually, it made it more authentic because that's what you want. You don't want to have an inauthentic relationship
mm,
with God. If there's anyone
yeah,
on the entire universe that you want to be real with, it's God. Something
yeah.
that struck me as well that I took something from was when you said that God was silent during the time that your dad died. But then you also described your dad being silent, but you said, I knew he loved me. I knew he had my back.
Mm,
Silent, but I knew. And it was like a parallel. Like God was silent in
yeah.
a time, but you kind of questioned his love. But then your dad is silent and you didn't question his love. And it kind of, I don't know, I just took something from that because it kind of just showed that God can be silent sometimes, but it's not to
Mm,
show that he loves you. Same way you would with your parents. If your parents are silent sometimes,
yeah.
you don't question their love. You just know they might not show it in the way that you think that they will, but they're there.
Mm. This is why I love talking about the book with people because I never actually made that connection. But it's like it's so sick to see you made that connection, and it's so true. And I think it's to do with the lens with which I view the world. Because obviously, with my dad, I could physically see tangible. He did this for me. He did that every day. I could see he went work and all that kind of stuff. So I never questioned his love. But if I view the world with the right lens, I'm like, I do what I do because of God. I have my dad because of God. He's done all this for me. So how come I'm questioning his love? So yeah, I think that's a sick parallel. You should write a book, you know?
Might just do it, man. I might just on that. Like that's the end of the book. Yeah, it did just struck me, man. And I took something from it. I actually took that and I said, that is actually really true. Because my parents are similar to your parents in that they
Mm,
never tell me that they love me. I don't hear it. I can't remember the last time my mom said that. Like, but I know
mm,
that she does. I just know.
yeah.
And when it comes to God,
Mm,
sometimes he's quiet and you think, God, are you there? But if you just apply the same lessons, he's there. He's there. You just
yeah.
have to look at the other things, man. And I wanted to touch on a little bit about your. I know that we've started another time. I'm nearly done. Thank you so much for your
Let's
time.
go.
Your marriage as well. So the effects of grief on you your friends and your family, your marriage. That's heavy as well. How did you how did you stay together? Was it a conscious thing to kind of say, okay, we are going to do this together? Because that's a heavy weight.
It is, man. Yeah, I think when someone loses a close, family member, friend, you always worry about, the person that's directly affected. But no one really thinks about all the other people connected to that person that might be affected, like the person I live with, who is my wife. And I think it was tough for her. She'd definitely say it was the toughest point in our marriage because when I'm going through something, I like to go through it alone. I don't like to be around too many people because I don't know, it just makes me itch a little bit. And when she's going through something, she likes, people to be close to her. And so we're different. And so she was like trying to be close to me, but I was like, just let me deal with this. And when you're married, you can't really have that kind of attitude. You're kind of in this together. You are one. So you have to go through things together. And so I had to recalibrate my brain, but it took me a while to get there. And so that it was a lot of not hostility, but he just didn't know how to deal with me. And I was drinking a lot more than I should be drinking. I was trying to numb the pain. I was struggling to sleep and all these things. And she was the one that kind of encouraged us to go to counseling together and started to really work it out. And I think it was after like 6 months. She said she Googled like, is my husband grieving or is he just being really annoying? And she thought it was time for me to she could just see that if I carried on the way I was and carried on distancing myself from her, it wouldn't be great for us long term. So I always respect her for that. But it is heavy. It's heavy. But I think when we go through difficult situations, we have to try our best to remind ourselves who's consistently been there for me through thick and thin and shown that they love me and haven't run away and, have been there. And those are the people that we need to try and respect and honor and pull close. Otherwise, you risk losing them. And you don't want to go through a tough situation and take it super, super, super badly and then look around and think, right, I pushed everyone that loved me away. You want to say that actually God used these people to get me back to where I need to be, a healthier state of mind. So with my wife, I think how she takes her marriage vows seriously in it. And so maybe someone else might have left me and said, nah, that's too much stress to deal with. But yeah, she stuck, and for that I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah, man, you got a good woman. From when she's googling, is he just being annoying? Like, me would
I
just
know.
annoying man, let me go because I can't. That actually made me laugh because I thought that is actually something that you would Google. Is he just being irritated, or is it which one is this? Because like that made me absolutely laugh, man. But yeah, I think yeah, she sounds like a solid rock in your life.
Yeah, and even the way I was behaving, I just thought if I deal with it myself, I could get over it quicker. And then some guy, who is it? I can't remember who told me this, man. But he was like, when you're married, you have to realize that alone you will definitely go faster, but together you will definitely go further. And it's like on my own I would go fast, but I would get to a point where I can't go no more. But together, even though I might have to go a bit slower, I can't get over things as quick, I can't deal with what I want to deal with as quickly. We're gonna end up going way further if we're in this together.
Yeah, 100%, definitely, man. And that is scriptural, is that a word? Biblical as well. So
That is still
it is.
both of them are words.
Scriptural is a word. I felt like
Yeah.
I like it was. And I wanted to ask finally about so you said that you were in a bubble before these deaths happened, the three of them. And I wanted to touch on the drinking as well, but we don't have enough time. But before they happened, you were in a bubble, which is true because I haven't had any adult deaths in my life. For example,
Mm,
I had my grandma, but she was 91, so she
mm.
was 91. I haven't had anyone,
Yeah.
a parent or a friend that I've had for 20 years, just die like that. And you are in a bubble in that you don't think it's ever going to happen. Is there
Mm.
anything that you think you could have done before this happened to prepare your brain for that? Or do you think it's just something that it just pops when it pops and everyone has to go through that and it just is what it is?
Yeah. I kind of feel that even if there's anything I could have done to prepare my brain, I wouldn't want to have done it or thought about it because I was living in, ignorance is bliss, isn't it? I don't like being ignorant, but there was something pure about when life is just going okay, you got your loved ones with you, you're just living in the moment, you're just enjoying it. If I had to be in that moment thinking, oh, one day someone's gonna die, it just kind of takes a bit of the fun out of it. And so, in a way, I do think that, as Christians and the church in general, we can do a better job of preparing people for pain so that when it happens, we don't doubt God. But I also think that we need to try our best to be present in the moment. And if our life is joyful, we need to make the most of that, because there will come a time, sadly, where, it won't be as joyful. But I've spoken to people that have, lost people over a long period of time. Their parents have, I don't know, had cancer, but it's like a 4-year battle, and they watch them kind of slowly fade away. And I've spoken to people that their parents have been in car accidents, and it's been really sudden. And the one thing I've taken away is that no matter how it happens, it's never easy. Do you know what I'm saying? And you're never fully prepared. But just when it happens, just know that God is with you. He won't leave you, and you will feel lonely, but it's not accurate. Like, He's with you. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if there's anything. There probably is something I could have done to prepare myself, but I don't know if I would have wanted to, soil being present in the moment by worrying too much about the future. It's in the Bible. I can't remember where it is. It's like, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow has worries of its own. We just take every day as it comes.
Yeah, that's true, man. And I read a book once by Brene Brown, and she did this book about
Mm,
vulnerability. And she was saying that often when we're in with these really joyous moments, and she painted a picture in your mind, and she said, imagine you're in a car, you've got your husband or your wife, your kids are in the back, and you're all singing to a song, and you're driving down the
mm,
motorway, and it's all going great. And she was like, imagine I say bang, what happens? And then the audience
mm,
is really quiet. And she was like, you imagine the car crash at it? And she was like, why do we do that? Why do we fill our mind with dread when everything is going great? Why don't
yeah,
we live in the moment and not predict the worst? Just live in it now. Because the worst is probably going to
100%.
come at some point, but you live in the moment, feel the joy.
Mm.
And that's kind of what you just said, isn't it? You just live with it, and when it happens, it happens.
Facts, big facts. I actually imagined a firework when you said bang, not a car crash. But yeah. No, I didn't really. I imagined a car crash, but
I was gonna say, no one's ever said a firework. Like, where would that even come from? But like, that's it, man. I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you,
all
man.
good, my G. Love, man.
Premier Gospel.